Welcome back to the Tansson Talks show. I'm Brandon, the host of the show, and I always love doing this. Heading into episode 126, I'm very excited to welcome my guest here today, Elijah Anderson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you. And so, first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm also doing well. Thank you for asking. I'm just so excited to speak with you.
I'm excited. Let's do it. Let's get in.
Perfect. So, if you're able to go ahead and start us off by introducing yourself for the watching or listening audience here today.
Hi. So my name is Elijah Anderson. I am a resident of right here in Virginia, and I currently work kind of a bunch of jobs, but my primary role is the production coordinator for a multi-site church down in the 7557 area. So that role has me traveling around from location to location, and then when I'm not working with that, I'm doing IT for a local private school and doing a lot of contract work with other churches and a part-time wedding videographer as well. So
Quite a bit of jobs.
just a few.
Well, awesome. I'm just so excited, for us to get into this conversation. Been looking forward to it for quite a while. And so I'm actually, since I think there's so much that we can speak about, I actually want to actually turn this over to you and say, where would you say that your story and where you are now, where would you say that your story begins?
In terms of my story, I think it really begins where honestly, as cheesy as it might sound, at my birth. So I was born in China, and then due to my disabilities, I'm legally blind and have a condition called albinism. I was put up for adoption, and so when I was about 4, I was brought to the U.S. and grew up in a loving family who raised me in the church, where I really kind of discovered my passion for audio video. I went to college to study, actually, not even audio video, but a more, I guess, side field per se, but in information science. So working with computer systems, networks, cybersecurity a little bit. But when I was in 2021, in my junior year of college, I got an internship at a church that I was attending at the time and found that my passion was truly in the audio video space. And so from there, I did the internship. I was kept on part time during my senior year of college. And then upon graduating, I was offered a full time position to where I am now.
Wow, well, that is quite the story. And so I guess actually to start from the very beginning, how would you say that your upbringing helped sort of influence your path forward?
Yeah. So growing up, I was definitely, it was interesting growing up because being a person with, I mean, I'll be honest, my physical appearances, it's usually, you're just kind of seen as almost an outcast. And so I found that I really delved into a lot of nerdy topics. So I really loved messing with computers, taking them apart, just tinkering. Was also homeschooled, so through that, I had opportunities to continue furthering those interest areas. My mom was very passionate about getting me and my brothers involved in the areas that we were very interested in. So I remember one time she brought home a entire curriculum on web design, and I remember digging into that and how I absolutely love web design and just understanding the roots or the fundamentals of what creates our digital world today. And so that kind of like really spurred my interests in the world of technology to begin with. Um, did that answer your question? I kind of blanked out for a moment.
Oh, no worries at all. And yes, that did definitely answer the question. I'm so glad that you're able to, to one, be able to dive into your interests and just sort of start picking apart about that early on. And when would you say that you really started gravitating more towards that? Yeah, that finding out about like web design and everything else, especially in comparison to other topics you may have been interested in.
Yeah, so I think as any kid growing up, you have all of these big ideas of what you're going to do when you grow up. I remember at one point I said I wanted to be an astronaut, and I remember having the opportunity to go to space camp, and I absolutely loved that. But as time transition kept going, I found my new interests. I at one point wanted to be a meteorologist, but I think once I was about 10 years old, I started really getting fascinated with how technology could be used to improve people's lives and how I saw it with. So I was involved with a lot of different organizations that work with those with legal blindness, and I saw how other students were utilizing technology to advance their careers, their lives, and so I kind of gravitated to how can I now use technology to also um, you know, I don't want to say that pull me up by my bootstraps, but in a way, it's does it help propel me into my next stage of life?
I said so. From what it sounds like you're really able to utilize your interest in technology and find a way how that can be used to help out others.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I really do believe that technology can be utilized to help bring people in, especially those who may have disabilities that might not necessarily be easily addressed. Growing up when I was about 8, I remember my family. We grew up in church, and so we would sit in services. And I remember my brothers and I. I actually have two other younger brothers who are also legally blind. So we've had a difficulty in engaging with the services because we couldn't see what was happening on the screens, and so this older gentleman in the church actually ran a coax line underneath the church from their little tech booth over to where my family and I sat and set up a little TV so that we could actually see exactly what was happening on the screen. And so that was I saw from that I saw wait, technology can be used to really help people, even in the most basic small ways like that.
I'm so glad that that individual was able to do that for you and your brothers. And I mean, I feel that, and I know that those even those small steps make such a big impact.
Of course.
And would you say that? I mean, that even helped push you to where you are now. I mean, you work uh, at the minimum 7 churches, not to include even your consulting and your what's that in your other work.
Yeah, I really, honestly, the church really gave me an opportunity to kind of foster what a lot of my interests. I mean, going back to a little bit about the web design stuff. I mean, I remember when I was about 12, they were looking for someone who would be interested in helping assist with maintaining the website, setting up a podcast so that all of our Sunday morning uploads could go online. And I remember I was so ecstatic to be able to jump in and join in on that. And so that was one area. But then when I was about 14, I had the opportunity to assist with an AV install for a new system that we were working on. And so from that point, I had the opportunity to kind of join the team. But eventually, when I was about 16, have a lot more involvement in actually help lead the team in what audio video could look like for that church. And I think that that really kind of established a lot of my, I guess, fundamental understandings of audio video, but also where I could see it going further.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get that involvement. Actually, switching a little bit of gears from that to tackle the other side, since all of that involvement was with your home church, I believe.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so I know that you've spoken about sort of the AV side, but how has your involvement been over the years with the church from the religious side?
From the religious side, yes. So I grew up, obviously I grew up in the church about I came to America when I was about 4 years old, and so that was my church from 4 years old up until I went to college. And so I was very involved as a kid. I did all like the typical Wednesday night programs that you would do. Did vacation Bible schools, did all the things. I found that I was involved, but I think it wasn't until I was about 15 that I started really thinking about what is actually being part of the church mean. Uh, every single Sunday, our pastor would say something to the extent of, hey, you teenagers, you are constantly told, hey, you are the church of tomorrow, but actually you are the churches today. So you need to step up and actually take on that responsibility, because we aren't going to treat you like your children. We're going to be treating you like adults. And so that, I think, was a huge encouragement. But from another spiritual perspective, um, where my spiritual journey kind of really originated was growing up in China and being adopted. I never knew my birth parents. I was abandoned when I was about a week old. And so I think I struggled a little bit with the understanding of being a part of something, or even being wanted necessarily. Even though I was adopted by loving parents, just the idea of, being kind of cast out or not cared for, kind of, I think that resonated with me through my adolescent years. And so um, I remember in youth group, actually, I remember we had a summer series we did through, I want to say it was Ephesians, but I remember one evening we talked about just the concept of being adopted into the kingdom of God, and how we can see God as this heavenly Father that is surpasses any earthly father we could possibly have. Again, amazing family, but that I had that adopted me. But at the same time, I think that was the first time that idea really clicked, and actually I understood it. And so I finally decided to make the decision to accept Christ when I was about 15, and I was baptized when I was about 16. And I was, I'd say I was been very faithful in both the church and in my spiritual walk ever since.
Well, I mean, it's first of all, I'm so glad that you were adopted by a loving family and were able to have the life that you have now. But but it's so interesting to hear how, I mean, truly your upbringing and your very start of life really helped sort of define what exactly being a part of that community really means to you, and help, I suppose, work as a framework for you even trying to be a part of something, and know that you are wanted and appreciated.
Yeah.
And I did actually, if I may ask, so for you, had you always known about your personal history, or was this something that you found out about later?
My parents never really hid from me. I mean, like, I remember always being told stories of my time in the orphanages, and that they had heard from like the caretakers. My parents actually adopted four kids in total. So initially, this is kind of a tangent, but kind of a cool story, which I feel actually also plays a little bit into my testimony a little bit. But my parents, same they were attending the same church that I grew up in, and a missionary team came and were talking about supporting the missions through working with orphanages in China. And so they brought back a tape, and apparently it included a video of me. I I've actually gotten to see the clip, and it's just like little me scurrying about the orphanages. Uh, I think I was about 2 at the time. But at that point, my parents always tell me that the story was that immediately they knew that I belonged with them. So they attempted to go through the adoption process, but during that process, there were a lot of hurdles that they faced, to include things that, like, they couldn't locate the dossier. None of the adoption agencies could locate this dossier, because um, it was seen, I guess, in the culture that I was not an ideal child. So who's going to want to adopt me? And so they actually went through the process. I think it took them about 8 months to actually try and locate the dossier. And in that time, they were actually approached about actually a girl who was about to age out of the adoption system, who would become my older sister now. And so they were basically asked by the adoption agency, hey, we have this girl who is literally going to age out. And if you don't adopt her, you are basically her last chance at a new life, because they were the only ones who had all the paperwork far enough along to go from there. And so they had to make the decision to put me, my adoption, on the back burner and adopt her. So they felt like God called them to go and adopt her, and so they went and adopted her. And I've been told that, very soon after, though, when they brought her home, actually, it was within a week of her coming home, I believe she actually hit that age that she would have aged out. And so several months later, they finally heard back from the adoption agency, and they were like, "Hey, we finally found the information. We found the dossier that you need to be able to adopt him." And so they were able to come back about a year later to adopt me. And then they did the whole process again with my two younger brothers, one of which was actually kind of a more challenging adoption. I actually had the opportunity to go back with them to adopt him. I was about 10 years old, and when we brought him back, we learned that he actually, while in China, we went to a health clinic where they determined that he had active tuberculosis. And so, being if someone has active tuberculosis, you are not allowed to travel via air or anything. So the question was, are we going to be stuck in China for the next several weeks, months, whatever it be? And so, luckily, whether it's a luck or the grace of God, every single test that they did afterwards, they basically indicated a negative test result for tuberculosis, which, whether or not that says it, what that says about the healthcare system over there, that's for you to decide. But we brought him back to the U.S. in 2010, in December of 2010, and within about a week, my mom had taken him to the doctor, got him looked at. They're like, "Yes, that is full blown tuberculosis." And within that week, actually, I remember him spending Christmas separated from me and my other brothers, and had like a tube in the side where it went into his lungs so that they could get samples, so that they could test those samples and figure out how to best combat the tuberculosis. Um, but that was kind of a long tangent to tell you about, like, um, from my experience of being adopted, I have continuously seen God working through my life to bring me to the U.S. If I hadn't been for the adoption, who knows how long I would have been sitting in an orphanage, or if I would have ever actually been adopted. And so those small details have been a real blessing to see how God continuously is working in my life.
Well, I'm so, you know, well, I would say that, from hearing your story, and first of all, thank you so much for, for even willing to share your story first and foremost.
Of course.
But certainly, having heard, just heard your story, I can certainly see how God really has been like protecting your family and giving you and your siblings that second chance at family.
Yes, it's been a real blessing.
Well, I'm so glad, and I'm glad that you were also able to be a part of the process. Was that for one of your younger brothers? And so, progressing forward a bit, I did want to ask. So, as you've been progressing up until the time that you were heading into college, did you know what next steps you had wanted to take at that point? I know that you mentioned that that you'd spent years working with like the AV team at your home church, but did that give any indication as to what you wanted to do next, or how was that for you?
So I honestly, um, it everything that kind of transpired from there kind of happened by accident, if anything. Because I in high school had my mindset saying, I'm going to be working with computers from here on out. I want to be doing networking, and I want to work with, just, I don't know, learning all the insides and outs of computers and how to work with them. Um, I never really thought I was going to be doing AV as a future career. Originally, it was more of, hey, this is a kind of a fun hobby, if anything. But in college, I actually, within the first 3 weeks of college, I found I was bored, And so I started looking at jobs that the college was offering, and I saw that they had an opportunity to work with their audio video event team. And so I interviewed, got the job, and I was actually actively involved with that for my entire 4 years of college, which I think continued to, you know, push forward my interest in the audio video sphere.
Well, I'm glad that you were able to get that job. And actually, backtracking a little bit, how did you decide to go to Christopher Newport University?
So I actually, I mean, as any student does, I went and toured a bunch of different schools, and I applied to three different schools. Um, and I had the opportunity to, I was accepted to all the schools I applied to. However, I think what really kind of settled it for me was I really like to be, involved with people. I like to know people and possibly even see people on a more consistent basis. I really crave community, and so compared to some of the bigger schools that I had the opportunity to go to, I felt like wouldn't have that opportunity. I mean, that might just be young, foolish me thinking that, but something about the small campus size that CNU offered was what really drew me to that school.
So, would you say that your experience at CNU was able to deliver on that?
I would say so. I was very involved with a bunch of different organizations. I was involved with one of the campus ministries, was with student leadership from my sophomore through my senior year of college, and I worked with a bunch of other organizations like Habitat, and I just found that I really enjoyed being in organizations I could go serve the community, serve others. Worked with this. We had a spring break service organization that would travel to different parts of the state or wherever to do service project with other like more local organizations in those different areas. And so I really found I was really gravitated to organizations such as that.
Well, that makes sense. And yeah, I do know that CNU has a special focus in leadership studies, for instance.
Mhm. Yeah, I was I actually had the opportunity to be a part of that. Their president's leadership program, which they offer to students who are interested in pursuing get a leadership minor in exchange for usually it's like a stipend on tuition as well as some other pretty cool amenities in terms of like housing lottery and early enrollment in classes and stuff like that.
How would you say that being a part of, I mean, that President's Leadership Program, the PLP, how would you say that that experience was able to, I mean, to benefit you and to shape your journey if it did?
Um, I thought it was a really cool opportunity to kind of like see how leadership, fact that there was a concept as leadership studies, I feel like outside of the world of academia, your mind immediately goes to, I mean, just do it. There's a phrase that you hear all the time is, oh, well, leaders are born, not made. But I believe the curriculum that they had was really trying to encourage, hey, well, let's actually try to think in a different way. Can you actually develop as a leader? Do you have to have certain personality traits to demonstrate certain leadership skills? You think of things like natural leadership characteristics like charisma or something like that. While not everyone may be charismatic per se, people who may not attribute charisma may be able to lead in other ways, whether it be in more intellectual fields such as um, on a group project or working within a service organization. You might be leading a specific uh, a task. But how leadership, the whole focus was on how leadership could look different, um, and how that could be applied in the workforce as well as in just uh, everyday culture.
I'm so glad that you're able to have, what's that experience. And yeah, for myself, as I have, definitely greatly researched was it the PLP program over the years and heard from guests who have been a part of it. I know um, that everyone I've spoken to has just really enjoyed their time within it, and are so grateful for the opportunity. So I'm so glad that that you were able to take advantage of that. And you mentioned a bit earlier that you were able to work with the audio video was it events team, and so how was that sort of progression over the years? And I believe you also had the pandemic in the midst of your college journey
Yeah.
as well. How did that all fit in?
So, I mean, I remember I jumped really quickly into working with the team. I think my entire stint at CNU, the AV team was always very sparse, and so our responsibilities revolved around supporting and resourcing all the different campus organizations, as well as facilitating sports, as well as any external events such as conventions or other conferences that would be utilizing the different event spaces. And so I definitely had a lot of opportunity to have a lot of, grow in my understanding of what AV looks like in not necessarily in just a religious environment, but what it looks like in more of a corporate environment slash events focused environment. So I feel like I learned a lot about some of the industry standards. And I was very fortunate to have a boss who was very much part of that industry for a long time. I mean, he used to work with broadcasting companies doing like live broadcasts for football games, and he worked with concerts. And so I remember he and I would sometimes chat about just some of his past stories and what he had learned. And I found that he eventually kind of started taking me under his wing and kind of like really trying to encourage me, hey, here's how you need to be developing yourself if you want to be in this field, how to slow down. Because I will admit, I was a very, and maybe even today, I love to just jump in and get going. And he really encouraged me, hey, in this world, especially when you're in front of a large audience, you sometimes do have to slow down and you really have to think through the different consequences of maybe trying to fix this thing, but it might break something further down the road. And so I think I learned a lot of those basic principles. But again, and to reiterate, I also got the opportunity to learn a lot of the industry standards that I could now carry into my current role.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to learn those industry standards and truly get almost like a mentor, so to speak, was that through your boss, and that you're able to, learn from their experiences, but then also build your own, as well. And I think that balance is just so important, yeah, especially, within the sort of the AV world.
Oh yeah, it's. I remember just I got so excited when, especially we do big events. We would do. We had the opportunity. Actually, that's through things like commencement, and I believe that's where yours and I's path actually initially came together. While we didn't know it at the time. I mean, here actually, I think you and I originally connected maybe about 2 months ago, and then realized, wait, we've actually connected before, but in passing. But getting to work with professionals in the field was a really cool opportunity to kind of learn. Okay, here are some entire world or entire set of standards that I have never thought about because, in a way, I've always been given kind of free reign of all the AV things in the past. But seeing, hey, okay, here's what the professionals are doing. Here's how I can, start adopting those standards into my workflow, and also how to have a good, honestly, customer service feeling, because I definitely got to learn how do you interface between clients and other coworkers in a professional but also meaningful way.
And what would you say was the experience, as you were just mentioning, going from being, the AV person, let's say, at your church, and, being able to have that free reign, to then having to, work for someone and sort of having to take that step back while still sort of learning, so to speak? Because I'm sure that was definitely, at least personally, I'm sure a bit of an adjustment, not just being able to do things, but instead having to, follow procedures and being able to work with a team.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely learned. I don't know as much as I thought I knew. Um, I This is gonna sound crazy, but the very first week, um, I was forced. Basically, my entire role was just wrapping cables, and it wasn't until even the first week that I was actually taught that there was a standard on how to wrap a cable properly. I mean, obviously, I understand that now. I've been doing that for now the last, oh, what is it, 7 years. I just did that math. I hate that. But understanding that, hey, I do need to learn how to submit, and um, that was definitely a hard thing, and I definitely got called out, and rightfully so, a couple times, saying, "Hey, slow down. We need to think this through better. You can't just keep jumping in and doing what you think is right. This isn't your little home church anymore. We're talking about a professional, large university. You need to know how to go by the book." And so that was definitely a almost a wake up call, for if anything. But I'm just very thankful that I had that opportunity to learn from my mistakes and to grow in that area of submission to a leader.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to, I mean, to continue growing with that, and let's say, and to take a bit of a sidestep from that. So, within your college journey, outside of, let's say, just let's say that role, and of course the President's Leadership Program, were there any other things that you were sort of, I mean, truly involved with? I know that you mentioned, of course, that you came to senior for the community, and so like, how was college life for for you over the course of your time?
I think honestly, the college experience. This is gonna sound so cheesy, and I acknowledge that, but I feel it. I was always told growing up, okay, these are gonna be the best 4 years of your life. You're gonna have all these experiences, so on and so forth. Um, first semester, I remember I struggled to necessarily find that community that I think I was really looking for. I don't know what I was exactly looking for, but I just didn't know if I really had found it. But by second semester, I think I something had just clicked. I got a lot more involved with my campus ministry. Actually, I brought that was one of the areas where I was able to kind of like, you know, own that area because they were like, hey, we need someone who can run all the tech things. And had a really fortunate, it was a great experience because my boss at the time at CNU, he knew that I was very involved with this campus ministry, and he said, "Hey, I mean, if you're already going to be at this ministry event, or why not just get paid to be there?" Because he had to provide staffing for those different ministry events, and so he's like, "Why don't you just be a part of that, and you can kind of take ownership of that?" And so because it had very little spillover into other areas, I did have a lot more opportunity to try new things. And so this sounds almost uh, very nerdy, but and very cheesy. But I was like, okay, we're gonna get off of Google Slides. We're gonna streamline this a little bit more. We're gonna start utilizing ProPresenter in this campus ministry, and I was kind of proud of it. Honestly, it was just having this refined system for how we ran our services. Because I'm very type A. I'm going to be very honest. I love how everything has a place, and I like when everything just flows like it should. I had got my campus ministry to adopt utilizing like online planning software, for example, Planning Center, to organize songs so that I knew what songs they wanted to use, and just making sure everyone was on the same page. That was honestly what my sophomore year looked like. I was very involved with that. And so working with AV and then working with my campus ministry, that was my sophomore year. But my sophomore year also coincided with 2020. And as we all know, what happened with 2020, everyone got sent home. And so for a while, we tried to do some online Zoom calls like you would normally do. But obviously, that's where community kind of like really fell apart. You didn't really have an opportunity to develop that community through a screen. Um, in that time, I try to keep myself busy. My church back home, they had never had a live stream before, and that was basically the only way that you could actually still have church. And so I had basically nothing to do because classes were basically non-existent, and so I just remember spending days at the church. We actually used to pre-record our services, which I think kind of kickstarted my interest in video. But we used to pre-record our services before we decided to eventually transition to live streaming, because the pre-recorded services just took a lot of time and energy that I don't think anyone really wanted to put in. And so what those live stream services for a long time looked like was actually outdoor services. So we used to set up like a little canopy and a bunch of extension cords running from the building, and a little I guess a giant cellular antenna that we could connect to like a local Verizon cell tower, so we could live stream out, because grew up in a church that was in the middle of nowhere, so everything was done via mobile hotspot. And so people would drive up to a service. We had a little FM transmitter that was hooked up to our soundboard, which we again dragged that out every single Sunday. And so people could sit in their cars and listen to the service and actually see their pastor right there. And so that, I think that actually kind of kickstarted that AV side, but I'll get back to that. But in terms of the social involvement, once we got back from COVID no, it was fall of 2020. University still had a lot of lockdowns. We had to do these COVID checks every single day. We had to actually keep distance. Pretty much every student event was canceled. You could not meet on campus. And so there was a lot of, I don't want to say this sounds dramatic, but it honestly was just loneliness. And so I started looking for other areas that I could get connected with people. And so that's where I really started digging in and finding community within my local church, which I had started attending in spring of 2019. I wasn't really involved with, it's actually the church I work with now, but I wouldn't say I was like fully involved until COVID almost forced my hand. And that's another area I see that as a blessing. I see that it forced me to find community in the church. And in that community, I found some of my best friends that I am still really close with today. The church is where I found my community, especially in my junior year of college. But, and then honestly, similarly with my senior year of college. But in terms of the work from an AV standpoint, because there were no events, all we did was run classes, like actual lectures, because of COVID restrictions and separation, social distancing. We were actually having to repurpose our large event spaces so that professors could host their large lectures in the spaces. So our theaters became giant lecture halls, and they had to have a technician on hand that could run audio as well as slide presentations for the professors. And so I jokingly said to all of our staff was, man, they might as well give us honorary degrees at this point, because we had to sit through so many classes. So many, and I mean so many memes came out of some of the classes. We had a group me of just all of our coworkers, and if we heard something that seemed really out of pocket from a professor, it just became a meme. And that's honestly helped help me get through some of the mundaneness of working classes in my junior year of college. And so thankfully, when senior year hit, it was so much better. Things were opening back up. I was finding I was getting back involved with the different organizations I was already involved with. However, I think come senior year though, because I had established my community outside of the university, I found that I actually gravitated to that outside community more than the community that I was around at CNU. Again, primarily because of all this time that we were on lockdown. And we were basically told, hey, you can't see these people, or you can't be within close proximity with them. That really kind of put that wedge and forced me to seek other people out, which I see again as a benefit because it now set me up with a community that I would have outside of the college experience, as we talked about. And so that was kind of a long-winded way to talk about my involvement, but that's how I've found it throughout my entire 4 years at CNU.
Well, I'm so glad that you were at least able to, I mean, to be involved. And even though, of course, the pandemic sort of shifted everything, so to speak, and probably not in the way that you have wanted, but it did work out to your benefit in that you were able to build that, that new church community and get involved outside of just the university.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was a huge gift because if I hadn't done, or if it hadn't been for COVID, I mean, I don't know if I would have actually gotten plugged in into the way I have. I probably wouldn't be in the position I am now because I wouldn't have fostered that community with everyone.
Oh, I'm so glad, like I said. I truly always have believed that things have a way working out in the way that it should, and so I'm so glad that that was able to, I mean, to truly be a blessing for you. And I guess two questions I actually have based off of that would be one: how was that sort of lockdown period for you, like in the the pandemic when you weren't physically at the university, and then and then I guess as a separate question of after you graduated, like did your I guess AV role with the university come with you being a student, or was that sort of a separate thing, or how did that work?
Yeah, so the AV role was specifically for students. It was an on-campus job, and so when it was only available to students. So once I graduated, that role kind of ended. Actually, kind of a cool kind of what the topping on top of it all. Um, Upon graduating at the at commencement, I had actually asked my boss at the time if he'd be willing to do the what is that thing that they not the hoodie, I think it's the hood, yeah, for the cap and gown, because genuinely he had played such a huge part in my CNU tenure or time at CNU.
That's amazing. I mean, I feel like that's such a sort of a special full circle moment, and was it able to work out.
Oh yeah, it worked. Everything worked out really well.
And so I guess for the first question, so how was that time when you were like at home during the pandemic, or actually what how do you remember how everything went, like when the university shut down? Like did they send everyone home, and what did you do during that time, or how was that whole process for you?
Oh yeah, I remember. It still feels like it was a crazy time for sure. We had just gotten back actually from spring break. I was actually working with a team down in Wilmington, North Carolina, doing a bunch of like home restoration stuff like that. And we got back to university, and we had heard on the news that there was this disease that was going around, and no one really thought about it. But literally within a week, you were hearing things such as, okay, the university is going to be mandating everyone kind of quarantine for a little bit, and then that quarantine kind of turned into, hey, we actually can't have students on campus. And I remember being sent home because the belief was, oh, this is only going to last like 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into, actually, we're just going to cancel the rest of the semester. And so everyone got the email saying, hey, come back to campus, get your stuff, go home. And so I remember I was just like, what am I going to do? Because I had already planned on a bunch of different things. Like that summer, I was planning on working at this summer camp that I worked at the year before. And so I'm like, okay, well, the state isn't allowing overnight camps. What's that going to look like? And so what it ended up looking like was that camp ended up just operating as a day camp because the governor eventually lifted some of those restrictions that allowed it to operate as a day camp, but just still, again, not as an overnight camp. So I was still able to do that. But that time between then and camp, I was just board. And as I was sharing, I mean, a lot of that ended up just be me, committing a lot of time to my church back home because I wanted to be involved in helping make a live stream or a drive-in service or an outdoor service, whatever it be. I wanted to make sure that it could happen. So a lot of that then turned into me working with a team, training them on how do you operate AV in a professional setting. While it was probably very, very overkill, and I acknowledge this, we the live stream was set up outside. We had a multi-cam setup with a couple Canon DSLRs from like myself, and then what the associate pastor. He's also a big photographer, videographer, and so we both brought our cameras to use for this setup. But a lot of the time ended up becoming me sitting down with the team and being like, okay, here's how we can do this. Let's learn how to do the boot up, shutdown process, and let's do this as a team. Like, no one wants this. No one really wants to be setting up, tearing down every single Sunday, or even having to do so much post production. But in all actuality, let's take what we've been given, and because we have the resources, let's do something great with it. Let's make light of it. And so basically, when I wasn't at camp, I would come back on weekends and I would continue working with the team. And as time kept going more and more, we started refining the live stream and the drive-in experience more and more. And it got to the point where once I went back to college, that live stream and that whole setup was running without me. They didn't need me anymore, which is honestly the best part about being in a leadership position, especially in ministry. We get told all the time where I work now, hey, you need to be raising up the next generation. Do not see it as they're coming to take my job. Oh, I should be worried. You should be grateful if we can raise up a generation who can take our roles or to fill in the gaps once we start moving onwards.
But even for my own role within video production, I've always operated under the thought of a let's see what let's do our best so that way the next group can do their best, and to always be learning, always be training. And so I'm so glad that that they were able to continue on without you, although as bittersweet as it may have been though.
Mm-hmm. I was very proud of them. They did a fantastic job, and at one point, it was kind of cool, honestly, to see the work that had been put in. The SBCV of Virginia did an interview with actually my home church. It was like, oh, how did y'all go about doing all this setup, and like how did y'all get through the whole COVID experience? And like the associate pastor was sharing, he's like, yeah, we really believe that we are better together. We can't. We were very fortunate to have people who really cared about that kind of stuff, and like he gave me a shout out and all that. And that was really cool to see that this thing that I built was getting attention, just in a much larger way than I ever anticipated, because I never saw it really going outside of like the small little town that I grew up in. And so seeing that we had built a team that we are now getting, so other churches would come and say, hey, how did you build this? Because like we're not big, we weren't a big church. We were a fairly small little church out in the middle of nowhere, out in the sticks. And we basically had no budget to do anything. And so a lot of things were scrapped together, from personal setups as well as just actually, I remember we bought like a really cheap computer and just started replacing parts inside of it to get it up to a spec that would be able to service the things that we needed. So we're trying to be as resourceful as possible with what resources we did have. So that I want to clarify and say that wasn't just we're throwing money at the problem or anything, but there was an actual challenge to developing a system, because we were having to be very budget conscious. And so sometimes there were quirks, sometimes things broke, and we had to learn, hey, it's okay if that happens sometimes. And also teaching the team that we were raising up, hey, mistakes happen, don't worry about it. I think that really fostered a good community with them, to the point where they're still live streaming regularly, um, and honestly better than ever. Now, even now that I'm so at this point 5 years removed.
Well, that's incredible that they're able to, yeah, to continue on from the foundation that you built, and add new layers to that.
Of course.
And I guess segueing into sort of what you do now, I guess, and bringing, so much of this full circle. So, how did this current position for you come about? I guess you have numerous positions, but I guess for your primary one, how did that really, come about for you?
Yeah, so I had actually, so I was attending the church for a while. Actually, started attending for about probably a year and a half before I started deciding I want to get involved. And so they had a little ministry fair where they were like, "Hey, if you're interested in serving this area, would love to see you sign up, and we will train you, and so on and so forth." And so I signed up because I'm like, "Oh, they have a tech team. I'm going to join that." And so I signed up, and I got contacted later that week saying, "Hey, we'd love to meet with you." And I did feel it necessary to convey, "Hey, just so you're aware, because with all transparency, I am legally blind. You don't have a problem with that?" And they're like, "No, you're fine." So I went in, chatted with them. They talked. We talked about what it was going to look like, and so I was thrown on. Actually, ironically, running cameras on Sunday morning. So I was sitting behind a camera, getting shots for the services, and so those services would have us getting there around 6 a.m. and usually not leaving until like 12:30, 1 o'clock, because the church I'm at, it's actually in a converted Kroger building, but today it probably averages around maybe 1,600 people per week. But then but even back then we were like a 3 service church. And so I was sitting behind the camera for 3 services every single Sunday. And it got to a point where I was doing it almost every week, really built a really good relationship with a lot of the staff. And at one point I got asked, "Hey, you should consider interning." And so I was asked to come in for an interview. I interviewed, and they're like, "Okay, here, we want you, you're going to be one of our summer interns." So I joined in 2021 as an intern, working with the tech team. And at the time, we had just adopted a third location technically. I think we were at 2 locations, and so that third one they were still onboarding, and so got to have the opportunity to help kind of build that. And so at the end of the summer internship, they're like, "Hey, we like your work ethic. We like what you do. Would you like to stay on as a part-time staff person while you complete your senior year of college?" I'm like, "Oh, I'd love to do that." And so I had the opportunity to do that. So finishing up senior year, I was working for the university, working for the church, and then doing all my other contract gigs. And in that time, we actually brought on another location. And so the way that our church does things is we don't plant churches. We actually adopt usually churches that have begun dying. Usually less than 10 people are attending at that point, to the point where financially they can't keep their doors open, because our big belief is that we want to make sure that there is a local church available in every community. And so we want to help keep that heritage going, that those churches could continue reaching those communities. So in October of that year, we were bringing on a location out over in Hampton, and so had the opportunity to be very involved with that. At that point, that the gentleman who I more or less worked under um, had moved on, and so I was working directly under this other gentleman. And so it was basically me, him, and another lady who did kind of more administrative work. So a lot of me on the ground doing the install work. So we got that location launched in October of 2021, and then in it was like March, that the person who was above me ended up leaving, and so I ended up becoming more or less my responsibility to now maintain these four different locations while finishing college. And so, in a way, that was a blessing because it meant that there was an opportunity for me where, because uh, pretty quick thereafter they were like, hey, we would like to offer you a full-time position upon your graduation. And so I accepted that, and yeah, since then we have actually added two, no, we've adopted two additional locations. We launched a plant, and then we also um, built a whole new building to move one of our existing locations to a larger facility. And so I have been had the blessing to kind of be a part on the ground floor of that, to go from a church of just like two locations to now we're at seven locations.
How does that feel knowing that, I mean, that you truly had a active and physical part in, being in that transformation and growing of the church?
Honestly, I still can't believe it myself. I mean, it is wild because here I am. I'm just fresh out of college. I didn't get a degree in any of this. I don't know everything, or I feel like that you should know in this role. So there's a lot of imposter syndrome. And so, luckily, we also had hired another individual who I had interned with the summer before, and she had also come from a similar background where she had studied with, actually done AV with her college. And so we both kind of like came in, we're like, okay, what are we doing here? Do we know what we're doing? Because her degree was specifically in music ministry. And so we both felt like imposters. And so there was a lot of research, a lot of trial and error. And that's an area that the church was really gracious to us in, is that they let us make mistakes and kind of learn, okay, how do we do this? And so uh, I I'm very thankful that I was honestly given that first. I feel like the whole first year was a test of grace from me specifically, on just learning what does it mean to go from being just a college student with like no responsibilities to someone who is now looked at to be responsible for developing volunteers, to maintaining infrastructure, to be put in charge of a budget, all this stuff. Like, it was intimidating to say the least.
Would you say, in retrospect, well, I guess for both then and in retrospect, do you think you were prepared to enter that position of being the person in charge of all of this?
I don't know if I could ever say I was prepared, like, because I feel like you are never prepared for the unknown. Because there was just a lot of things that I didn't know, and I will gladly admit I am a proud graduate of YouTube University. I had to Google so much in those first year and a half, probably 2 years. But through that, I feel like I've developed a new understanding, a new foundation of, okay, this is what production should look like. Here's how to do it in a effective way. Um, but also at the same time, with it being a church, how do you be a good steward of the resources that you've been gifted with? And so I don't think you can ever really be prepared for that, but do believe that I had people alongside me who helped equip me to be where I am now.
And would you say that, like, where you are now, would you say that's a culmination of everything that you've done? Because, I mean, from even our discussion thus far, like, you've done stuff at your home church, just sort of, figuring it out and making it happen, to, working at CNU, being able to, I mean, to have that mentor, that your boss that was able to help you out, to now being, the person, was that at your current employment. So, and I know that, of course, you mentioned that you're a proud student of, YouTube U, and so, what would you say, like, uh, was, I guess, the, I don't know, what would you say like really helped you out in that regard? And then even if there was something that you didn't know, let's say that you did the research, you have your facts. Was there anyone that you had that you were able to turn to and ask questions or troubleshoot? Because even with just two people, I mean that's still, yeah, obviously quite a bit of locations to try to just figure it out and hope it works for.
Mhm. I think I had to like really humble myself. Similar to college, I had to humble myself and really realize, okay, here's what I don't know. And I've discovered maybe it's just who I am, but I hate asking for help. If you ask anyone that I know, they'll say, hey, he is horrible at asking for help. Um, and so I had to learn, hey, okay, I need to ask for help here. And so the people I would sometimes turn to was actually, I would bounce ideas off of like my boss from CNU because he and I we would still text here and there. But actually, this is kind of funny. But the area where I found the most help was actually a Facebook group. It's this church sound and media tech Facebook group where I found that I could ask a lot of like those obscure questions that I'm like, I just did not understand. I'm like, okay, explain to me. Um, uh, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, how would I go about doing A, B, or C? Or what is the best solution to this? And you'd have like, there's about 100,000 people in this group at this point. But you'd have people chime in and say, okay, here's what we do, here's why we do this. And they would actually give some very insightful um, understanding to why one would want to choose one route over another versus like go with a more permanent in setup versus like more of a band-aid resolution. Like you and I have talked about band-aids and like how they are great if you're on a budget, but at the same time they sometimes those can be a lot more cost prohibitive later down the road than one might actually realize. So honestly, I think where I found the most help was through those Facebook forums and bouncing ideas off of people around me.
I'm glad you were able to use your like a mixture of your prior experience uh, and what's it, your connections that you've made from said prior experiences, and then the lovely tool we call the internet to be able to figure it out and truly make a foundation for yourself to work on. And within the time that you've gained this role to now, would you consider your like how would you say like your personal progression has been through this all? And I know that you have quite a bit of other work as well. So how did those even come about?
Yeah, so in the especially in the world of audio video, I with the digital the digital alliance that a lot of audio video is starting to rely on things such as networking protocols like Dante or QSys, or one of my personal favorites is this open source software called Companion. Like there is a lot of IT fundamentals you really have to know, and so that I feel has really prepared me. What I learned in college, but also in my own experiences, helped prepare me to be able to interact with the nuances of the digital workflow that is within the production field. How do you like when to use a KVM and when not to use it? Understanding the concept of spanning tree protocol and why maybe running video over your network is probably not a good idea. Um, I mean, those there's just different things that I feel like I've had the opportunity to learn through my roles from in those different areas um, to make me a better and more I would say well versed person. Because I will admit would not say I'm like a pro in any particular field exactly, but I would say that I have developed a good understanding of a lot of different areas. I love that term saying a jack of all trade is a master of none. But the part that I think people often forget is the last part of that is, but often better than a person of none. So being able to have a honestly a deep bench of understanding or um, resources to pull from, I feel like has shaped me into a person who can best talk both with the technicians, as well as interfacing with people who may not necessarily understand that technical aspect. I think of people like pastors, for example, having to explain to a pastor, hey, this thing here isn't working, but we're coming up with a solution, and we hope to have this resolved for you momentarily. Being able to communicate in a clear, effective way, I think is definitely something that is really rarely found in the AV world. You always hear about that stereotype of the grumpy sound technician, but I feel like because of the personality that I have, like I love people, but also I also love to learn. I've been able to develop myself into a person who can work well with like interfacing with clients. Um, so the work I've done with the school has taught me how to deal with the end user. Work with the church has taught me, okay, here's how to work with a team and how to be a leader in that team. And then working with some of my other sidekicks, here's how to be creative while also being systematic in the work that you do.
I like that different experiences have taught you different things, and that you were able to, I mean, to grow your craft, understand what you do and don't know, but also be willing to share your experience. I know some people are very much a this is my knowledge and my knowledge alone. Don't talk to me. But I like that you've been willing to to reach out to other people outside of just your base and or your uh, primary employment, and being able to help out and various different aspects from your contract work to your IT at the private school, and even to me, like before sort of uh taking I guess a different route for the remaining time, I did actually want to ask, so what overall got you started with working like at the private school and contracting? Like how'd your name get out there?
So it was actually a gentleman in the campus ministry I was involved with. He actually knew some people at the school, and they had commented that they were looking for an IT individual to help facilitate the information technology infrastructure of the school. And if they had known any maybe students within that field who would be interested. And so I developed a really good relationship with this gentleman, and he immediately had it was like, hey, would you be interested? And he got me connected with the school. And so I've been with that school now, I think, since spring of 2021. Yeah. So I've been with the school for a while now. And so through that, I've been able to develop some new like policies, procedures. Before I started working with them, they didn't have utilized things like an Active Directory, which I was like, we're going to change that right away. How to do device management well, like employing a MDM and things like that. Um, I've had the opportunity, like I've been given a lot of freedom to actually experiment with new ways that we can utilize technology to help students excel well academically, but also protecting students at the same time from spam phishing, or even just themselves sometimes. So in addition, the school has recently opened up a new building, which required basically a full new technology infrastructure. So that allowed for me to really use my degree in information science to build out a brand new network infrastructure. I got to delve into what a well developed, well designed NVR would look like, and a bunch of things like that. And so um, they have honestly given me a lot of leeway and a lot of trust in saying, hey, we trust you to know what's going to be the best solution, what's going to be the most cost effective, but also the best long term option for this school. And so that is one area where I've continuously been able to continue to expand my understanding and my experience in that area in the field of IT.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to one use your degree, because since most of your work from start to finish has largely been an AV work, how does it feel to do something like in the IT realm as a part of your job, considering that that is indeed what you got your degree in, but is a related but different set of skills.
This is going to sound weird, but I'll be honest. I've through the whole working in IT, I've discovered that I don't actually enjoy IT as much as I do. I mean, I love the tinkering aspect, but I've discovered that um, I think dealing with the end user has become that's kind of a challenging point for me in an area of growth where I'm like I've had to learn, okay, how do I, you know, handle this well? Because in my mind, they'll bring up questions like, this is broken, or I don't understand this. And it's usually like for someone who's in the tech, like a techie, they would be like, this is just basic fundamentals. Like, oh, someone said, oh, my screen's too dark. It's like, just turn up the brightness. So basically having to, you know, pace myself in my responses when working with the end users. Um, like I don't hate IT, but I found that it's also just I don't get to. Um, it's not a creative outlet in the same way that audio video can be.
Oh, I mean, I fully understand that. I mean, I know for myself, I mean, it's a long convoluted story, but the long story short about how I even got into video production is that I was interested in technology. I made a YouTube channel, and then I was like, well, I want to grow it. I got into video production. I was like, well, okay, well, I want to go back to technology. I did a technology internship. It's like, no, I want to go back to video. Um, and I mean, I love both, but in very different ways. But like, as much as I am interested in technology, like I definitely don't feel I could long term do a technology job. But yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, being able to, like I said, hear those sort of nuances, and like I said, I mean, then going into like your contracting work, like how did that start? Was that something that you were trying to do, or were you just referred to someone and then it just goes on and on, or how was that for you? Because I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. So are you talking about like the photography and videography?
Oh yeah, that too. And then also I know that you like do subcontracting work for other like churches and organizations as well.
Yeah. Honestly, so much. This is very fortunate, but so much of my contract work has been through like word of mouth. People have heard, oh, this person does this, and they do good work, and so I get recommended, and so I've worked with several different churches, and then some of them kind of keep me on speed dial. So if there's an emergency call and something happens, like usually I'm pretty quick to jump in and be like, okay, here's a solution that I can offer you. I kind of just started doing that because I mean, in ministry, I mean, it's you're not going to be rocking around with like Rolexes and Gucci bags and things like that, you know. So part of it was more not necessarily out of necessity, but I found that it kept me busy, but also gave me a little bit of extra income that I could use for other things, such as actually even ironically more ministry, like being able to actually uh, take people out to like a meal and just you know care for them, do things like that. So it gives me that opportunity. In terms of like the photography and videography, prior to my role at the church I'm now consolidating and focusing strictly on like the audio video lighting aspect. I was originally actually hired on as yes the AVL side, but also as a videographer, and so videographer, video editor, all of that stuff. So um, we actually used to do baptism testimonies or baptism videos where the different individuals would give their testimony, and we would play them before they were dunked. And that usually would be scheduled maybe 3 weeks in before the baptism. And so at our main campus, I remember there were some weeks or some go arounds where we had maybe 35, 40 people who were wanting to get baptized. And so we would have to film all 40 people, and I have to edit all of that within like a 1.5 week span. So I definitely got really good at video editing, and really quick at it. But as time kind of progressed, as we started like streamlining our video processes, um, I started really getting to experiment a little bit more when I wasn't necessarily stressed. And we had someone who came on to solely do videos, so that kind of helped alleviate some of that stress off of myself. He had some contacts with some wedding companies, and he's like, "Hey, if you would like, I could put your name out if you would like to earn some extra money shooting weddings on weekends." I'm like, "Sure." And so I've been able to do that for now the last year now. So I'll get a text or a calls from one of the owners of the company saying, "Hey, can you shoot this wedding on this date?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so I'll go out on site, film the wedding, and then send them the footage, and get paid for it. So that's all. Um, that's been a really cool opportunity to not one earn a little bit of money, but also um, have a kind of that creative outlet, where I can, just have fun with video, um, which I get told all the time is very ironic for being a legally blind person. Um, and then the photo thing has kind of just come naturally. I have a bunch of friends who play different shows in the area, playing bars and things like that. And they'll often be like, "Hey, we need some new promotional photos. Can we pay you to come do some photos for us?" And so through that, I've gotten to refine like my look, I guess you would call it, in terms of photography, to the point where I've now this year alone, I've done about, I want to say, 5 engagements now. Gotten to photograph 5 different engagements, because people have heard like, "Oh yeah, he heard and seen my work," and people are like, "Oh, we want you to replicate that for us." And so that's been really a real blessing that I've been able to, you know, grow in that field. I've been able to, through that extra income, buy some nicer equipment that I can, really start marketing myself as a photographer, videographer, and get some more time behind the lens.
Well, that's amazing. I'm so glad that you're able to have such diversified experiences from, yeah, from churches to, to IT, and then to even have that creative outlet. Yeah, I mean, in your photography and videography. I mean, that's just truly outstanding. I'm so glad that you, I mean, are able to have that experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, we certainly have gone through Les. That's so much, but I actually want to turn the table a bit. Are there any? Is there anything else that we have not discussed that you want to discuss, or questions for me, or anything like that? The floor is all yours, Elijah.
Ooh. When when did you eventually decide? So you went to school. What, Ryan? You went to school for?
Yeah, so I went to school. My bachelor's degree was in media studies, and my master's was in lifespan and digital communication.
So, but at what point was it in high school that you decided that was something you would, wh- could you have seen yourself where you are now?
Ooh. Sort of. I could sort of see it. So I don't know. I've always had a very broad sense of interest. I mean, I truly am interested in a little bit of anything and everything, and I'm very much a self-described research enthusiast. I love researching quite literally anything, and I am a Wikipedia editor in my pastime whenever I have time, which hasn't been much of lately, but. Um, but I would say really, like, I would go to my eighth grade year in middle school. I went to a STEM middle school, and we had a sort of tech team, so to speak, that we refer to as the Geek Squad. And I remember in sixth and seventh grade, whenever I tried to give uh, help to like a teacher, something, someone needs help, I could give a little bit of help, this and that. But at some point, it was just like, oh, sorry, only the Geek Squad's allowed to help. And it's like, okay, I have to get a part of this Geek Squad thing. So, 8th grade, I joined, and sure enough, after that, nobody cared. But nevertheless, I became a part of it. The tech team, I helped out with various things, and I had to um, film a little bit. That same year, I started a YouTube channel about tech. I always wanted to. A lot of people have always asked me questions about various things, like, like, is this phone good, or how do I fix this issue? So I decided to just make a YouTube channel to just share all of my information, I suppose.
Mhm.
And it was a fun project. I did it as a sort of class assignment that I decided to take to another level. But I was like, I really want to attend a communication program. So I applied for the magnet, didn't get in. But that was a sort of blessing in disguise that I was able to, in 11th and 12th grade, be a part of a true video production course, a dual enrolled one at that. And so I was able to be a part of the crew, work out with everything, and then I was like, okay, well, this is fun. I like doing this, but I'm really interested in tech stuff. Now, I don't have any actual per se specific interests. It's just something in tech. Um, I did a tech internship. It was it was fun. I applied to do it a second year, which I got accepted to. Didn't have a chance to do it though. But it was in doing that. It's like, I actually really like this video production stuff, and so I just wanted to make the most of it. And then I ended up actually leaving the program early to start college early.
Mhm.
And then pandemic.
Ah,
So yeah, the pandemic quite literally shifted things a bit. So I was technically in my first semester of college at the time, but I was also in my senior year of high school as well. So
mm,
it was a very awkward pause because there were no productions at the early part of the pandemic until about June. So we had a 3 month period where it's just nothing.
mm. Wow, that's so. Wait, remind me. So you were in high school when the pandemic happened?
Yeah, so for the long story short of it is that I graduated high school in June 2020, but I'd actually started full time college in January 2020. I'd finished high school a semester early.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So then, if you could go back to your eighth grade self, what is something you would tell them?
Ooh, I would say that it's all going to work out, and don't worry as much about the small things. I have always been a planner, like a very thorough planner, to say the least. I was looking at my master's degree choices while in elementary school. So to say that, like I said, I'm a planner, I think is a tad of an understatement. But I'd say just to not worry about those small details as much. I love being able to understand a little bit of anything and everything, but some of that just comes with time. Um, that and that trusting that the plan is going to work. I don't know what the plan is. You don't know what the plan is. I don't think anyone outside of God really knows what the plan is, but
Yeah,
I I think we can just trust that it's going to work out, and that we just have to like have that trust that it's going to work out in the way that it should, for better or worse.
of course.
But yeah, I mean, were there any other questions that you had for me?
I think that's it, dude.
All right. Well, like I said, I've just so enjoyed, like I said, this conversation. And I did want to ask, so what does it mean for you to be, to speak about your story here on, like I said, the podcast?
What does it mean? I mean, I think it's just an opportunity to kind of uh, share, obviously, sharing my story in a lens or with a lens that, hey, as you say, everything works out. Everything happens in God's timing. I mean, throughout this entire talk, I mean, I've gotten this, I've kind of even reflected on myself, or reflected to myself, okay, this is how I got to where I am now. And all those little things that I saw as barriers or those different limitations, things that kind of like, oh, this is putting my life on hold, things like the pandemic. I mean, everything had a purpose. What we saw for evil, God used for good, which is just consistently evident of just that there is. I'll, I want to say that I want to say this well. Um, there is someone at work constantly.
I certainly, like I said, love that sentiment. And if anyone wants to continue, like I said, following your story online, where are the best places, like I said, for them to potentially find you?
I mean, I pretty much only really post to Instagram, and even then, I don't post too often. But they can follow me. They can follow my creative account, which is EA_creative_official.
Well, that certainly sounds quite official.
Yes, it is. I think if I recall, the just EA_creative was taken, so I had to throw something on the end of it.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, so I did also want to add before asking, what's that final question. Throughout this conversation, you've spoken about your life story from truly the week that you're born to where you are now. And so, if you had to give a title to this conversation, what would you call this?
Hmm. And that's a hard one. Don't actually use this one because this is so corny. My brain mainly went to like from rags to riches, but I'm like, nah. Um, yeah, you really like got me on the spot, dude. I'm trying to. I feel like something to the extent of it all happens in His timing, or um, uh, it'll work out. I mean, kind of similar to what you and I were just talking about. It all works out.
I love that. And I mean, I truly do think that, I mean, that is the ultimate, like, moral of the story, too. And yeah, I mean, I've just certainly, like I said, love the conversation. And that being said, I will let you go ahead and close out this conversation with whatever be a life lesson, inspirational thought, or whatever the case may be. The floor is all yours.
Um, I mean, this is honestly the verse that I always go back to in 1 Corinthians 10:31. If whatever you eat or uh, uh, what eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God.
I love that. Thank you so much for, like I said, for being a guest here, Elijah. I so greatly appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course, and for those tuning in, thank you so much as always for tuning into the Tansson Talks show. I always appreciate your support and continue tuning in every episode as we continue on our mission to bring people together. I'll see you next time, friends. Take care.
Bye.